Hi there, it's Kevin with GatheringMatch.com with match number 4 with our good old UR Ingest deck, or Ghostfire deck. I think that we go ahead and keep this. It's one of those awkward scenarios, again, where we need that third land. But it's pretty... We have answers for non-creature spells, or any spells and creature spells. And we have that first turn Ghostfire Blade. And now we can actually take care of another card. So we need to draw into a land. We have 2 turns to do it. And black-white transgress hits, but it doesn't hit that relevant of a card. This might be what they call white-black Eldrazi's. They run Transgress, they run Silk Wrap, and then it gets a lot of value off the Woodland Strangler. Because Woodland Strangler only needs 1 card in the exile zone. And Silk Wrap does a good job, Stasis Snare does, and so does Transgress. You also have Complete Disregard. And then that's a pretty decent removal package between the 4. Stasis Snare can take care of any creature. Silk Wrap can take care of creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less. And what did he end up getting here? And then Complete Disregard can get rid of power 3 or less. So he's going to get the Skyspawner. And unfortunately, we did not hit our land drop. So we are a little bit behind. Unless we hit our land drop, he won't just run a Horribly Awry out. Plus, if he is the white-black Eldrazi's, they do try to stall the game until an Ulamog as the finisher. So, not quite sure what we're doing now. He's going to transgress again. I think he'll get Pia and Kiran Nalaar. And hopefully we can draw into that third land drop. Could be just be From Beyonds. Could be the other card that they have just to be able to tutor up that late game Ulamog. So it's kind of going a very similar strategy to what I would say modern. There was an old Abzan control list with high Liliana's and Lingering Souls, and I'm sure that this is what this deck is trying to do. So this is their Thoughtseize is Transgress, and their Path to Exiles are cards like Silk Wrap, and then it just tries to get to a finisher. Siege Rhino might be in this particular one, and we do miss our land drop, which is devastating because it's the difference between us getting out an aggressive card here and preparing for a Pia. What did he end up getting? A Spell Shrivel. I can still counter a Rhino. So you can't run out a Rhino. Silk Wraps are actually kind of bad versus this deck because a lot of our cards put in 2 or more creatures. And a Duress is going to get the... Probably at this point, it might just be the Horribly Awry if he has something to actually use. Den Protector is most likely what the other green splash is for. Yeah, and we might just see a Den Protector morphed over. If he does that, we need to draw into the land for the touch. Just going to draw cards with Abzan Charm. Alrighty, come on, land drop. Womp womp. So another one of these games where... What turn is this now? That was turn 4. That we did not draw a land. See if he's got another. Wow. 4 mainboarded Duresses and Transgress. most likely. Takes the other one. See if you can Siege Rhino here now. Siege Rhino don't have an answer for. It's going to be tough. There's no roasts in the sideboard. It was a card that I thought about. It just... Siege Rhino was one of those cards that I didn't quite think was that big of an issue for the deck. But in this particular matchup, it's going to be the card that's going to get us. And there's the Siege Rhino. We're down to 17 if we miss this land drop. We hit it finally, but you got to think he's got control. We'll play the Vile Aggregate, actually, because it blocks the Siege Rhino. He's using Abzan Charm. Complete Disregard gets rid of it, though. We'll block and make him use a Void or a Wasteland Strangler. Or it could just have an Abzan Charm to pump it up. And there's the Abzan Charm. So we take one. I don't think there is much. We need to draw a land here. Perfect. So we do get Pia, which I think might be the more powerful card. Because this at least can put some pressure on him. But we're dealing with a 6/7 Rhino. And whatever else he still has in his hand. We gotta let it go through. Don't know if I can race him. There'd be very few cards I could draw into that could race a 6/7 Siege Rhino with no way to gain any life. And the backup Siege Rhino. So not a very diverse hand by our buddy, our opponent here. What is Kozilek and then just put a Ghostfire Blade the best play? Because this allows us later to kind of string. Go down to a 1? I guess that's the best play. See what other monstrosity he draws into. 2 cards left in his hand. We'll definitely go down to a 1. And I will trade with this Rhino. He's got the 3rd Abzan Charm. Alright, so we will have enough toughness, though, next turn. It's a Den Protector. We have to touch it now, but we can actually cast both. No, he can just get it back. See what it is. See if it is the Den Protector. If it runs into a Siege Rhino. Of course. Alrighty. So, we'll go into the sideboard. This is a rough matchup. Disdainful Stroke can hit Siege Rhinos. Not quite sure what else is in his deck. I'm thinking Gideon is. Gideon's absolutely in his deck. It's just going to be a... it's Abzan running a ton of discard, so... Wild Slashes can come out. I don't think they do enough versus this matchup. Fire Impulse is this. I feel the same way. Disdainful Strokes will bring in. Thopter Spy Network will bring in. Exquisite Firecraft, I don't quite think so, but the Horribly Awry and the Negates are fine. So why did I take out the Vile Aggregates? Those were not supposed to come out. It was touches that were supposed to come out. We have the Skyspawner's great in this one. So is the Herald of Kozilek. I'm not 100% sold on the Disdainful Strokes, though. I don't know if they hit enough cards in the deck. Or if cards like Herald of Kozilek, actually. I think it's the Herald of Kozilek that comes out. I don't think we need to be stringing cards quicker. And hopefully we can resolve a spell before we get dressed into oblivion. Or transgressed. Yes, we like to play first. I guess this is okay. We'll start off with an Evolving Wilds and go get a red source. So Duress hits a Negate, which is the only thing it hits. Too bad we didn't have another creature in the... I always love when they first turn Duress miss. But I think it might be much of the same match, especially hitting that land drop now is bad when we have 5. So if he transgresses, takes the Ruination cut, he can actually stay ahead of me here. All right, cool. See if he duresses. Duress is dead card now. So, can't avoid those land drops to save our life, so we'll put out the Ruination Guide. At least this allows us to have a bit of aggression on the board. It can easily get solved with complete disregard. But if he goes complete disregard, then we can get the Whirler Rogue. He can transgress and get the Whirler Rogue here, though. Fire Impulse does take care of it. We have double Whirler Rogues. Wonder if Radiant Flames is in this particular deck. Now we have 4 power on board. We might be running into a Siege Rhino, though, which is, again, going to be difficult for the deck to handle. There it is. The Siege Rhino. Drew another land. Whirler Rogue here. Give the Whirler Rogue unblockable. Tagging for 4. It's the best we can do. Best we can hope for. Without Roast, though, I don't think there's... Especially like another Siege Rhino. If another one comes down. Then... Oh, or Languish. Should have attacked first, though. I don't understand the... Well, I could have blocked. And, oh, we're in the exact same problem we had last game, but the opposite end of the spectrum. Which is magic. It happens all the time. And I think the Rhino is going to just run the course here. At least he misses with the Transgress. But what is the best case scenario we hit here? I still think like a Vile Aggregate's fine, just because it blocks Siege Rhino. Or the Blight Herder, because it blocks Siege Rhino. But other than that, I don't think there's much we can draw into even save us. It looks like a second Siege Rhino. Yeah, that is brutal. Both games double Siege Rhinos. And there's a Spell Shrivel, and that is game. We can't beat the Siege Rhino. We'll go on to the wrap-up video. This has been Kevin with GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching. Hi there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com with a wrap-up video with our blue-red Eldrazi's. I think the deck performed all right. It was like, when I said right before in the deck tech, this is like a 50-50 matchup in testing. That has exactly been my experience. It can run really hot. It can also run very cold. Typical for a lot of our losses where they're getting stuck on 2 lands or getting flooded above 7 lands. You're going to find that's going to be very, very similar to a lot of wins and losses with any deck, especially on MTGO with the true randomness of the shuffler on MTGO. But I think that one card that was obvious we do need in the sideboard is Roast for Siege Rhino. And I would just cut some Fire Impulses for 2 Roasts. So that'd be the first edition. And I still think the Horribly Awry was pretty bad main board. It a lot of times was not... It was a dead card. Both of these cards were ending up being dead more often than not. But I still think that they, against a lot of the decks, it's a way that we can take care of Mantis Rider. It's a way we can take care of anything from the white-green Megamorph deck list. It can counter Den Protectors. It can completely get rid of Death Mist Raptors. So I think that it's worth having 2 in the deck. We went up against 2 extremely heavy control lists, a ramp list, and then a 5-color aggro deck where I think that we got the short end of the stick. I think that's actually our best matchup, is that 5-color good stuff aggro with the Mantis Riders and the Rattleclaw Mystics, because we have so many answers for all of those cards. Now I know how to play against it. We wouldn't, I think we'd keep in the Horribly Awry as a 4 of, and the Exquisite Firecrafts would come back in, and we'd have ways to deal with those Rattleclaws and the Mantis Riders. So I had fun with this deck, though. I think that you could easily splash in black. If you go into black, we have the Woodland Strangler, and the fetch lands make this so easy. If you have access to, it's not Woodland Strangler, Wasteland Strangler. The Wasteland Strangler, which is very good with Horribly Awry and the ingest cards like Vile Aggregate, Touch of the Void, and it's works perfectly if they, especially it's like the red-green landfall when they go first turn, Zergoop Bell Striker, and then you counter their 2-drop, and then on turn 3 you can actually give back their ingested card and then kill off their Zergoop or something and be very far ahead at that point. So I thought Blight Herder as a 2 of in this deck was still fine. The ingest gets a lot better with cards like Wasteland Strangler, and then there's some decent blue cards with processors. All of the processors, they have you can go down in the count of some of these counter spells to give you a more reliable counter spell in the form of Ulamog's Nullifier. I've had pretty mixed success with the Nullifier. It is 4 mana, but you get back a 2/3 flyer. And the problem with this, I really wish the design would have just made it 1, because at turn 4 it is kind of hard to already have ingested 2 cards. So I think that is what's really keeping Ulamog's Nullifier from being the most playable option, but it gets pretty good late game, especially in its control. Gives you something that you can hook up to a Ghostfire Blade and counter their spell and then flash it back in. So it definitely is worth considering. The other processor, the 5 life I didn't find very relevant for the Ruin processor, and the 6 mana was just a little bit too high for the Ulamog's Despoiler. This would be a 9/9 for 6 mana, and then in a format where it's very easy to chump block, a lot of Gideon tokens, a lot of tokens in general. I just don't like the Despoiler at this point. The cards that you have, the Titans. If you're going into the Wasteland Strangler, you have the Titan's Presence. I think it's a little bit better for black. You can go a more aggressive route with the 3/2 Haster for 3 mana or 2 mana if you don't want it to have haste. It gives other colors cards haste, which can be very significant with cards like the Vile Aggregate. It's very, very easy to splash into the black. I'm going to pull up a list right now of a list that I made that I based this off of, and this is the one where I did use black, and we ran Forerunner of Slaughter, which was basically the only main boarded black card. But you can see how easy, if you have access, of course this is not budget, but if you have access to fetch lands, it is so easy to tutor up 1 black source and be good to go. And the Forerunner of Slaughter attacks the deck at a whole new level. It allows you to give anything haste after that. It's very good with the Vile Aggregate. It's very good even just to hook up with the Ghostfire Blade onto any one of these cards and then be able to give it haste. And if you can see that the deck list is very similar, I think that one change I'd make to this one is just to cut some Skyspawners. The Skyspawnner did seem like the weak link, and put in some Herders into the main board. I do think that the card is powerful, especially how it interacts with the Vile Aggregate and with the Ruination Guide. So in my opinion, it is worth splashing for black if you have access to the cards. Still using the Hangarback Walker and the Ghostfire Blade. But then the sideboard, you have access to a lot more of the really good process cards. We have Wasteland Strangler. Had Self-Inflicted Wound. I don't actually think that Self-Inflicted Wound is necessary in the metagame. It's too diverse right now to really get as much value out of it. So I think a better card would just be some more Horribly Awry in the sideboard. And cards like Disdainful Stroke I think are still very powerful. So that was my list with when I did have we had a Sire Stagnation that I just threw in for control. I've actually been a little bit disappointed with this card. A lot of times it just comes out as a 5/7 and their opponent just never plays any more land cards. So I would cut this. The 2 Ulamog's Nullifiers are fine, but I think it's just it's more of a one-of card, and put in another Wasteland Strangler. You ingest enough in this deck to, I think, to really get value out of it. Wasteland. And you could easily justify running even more Wasteland Stranglers if you go up to a full 4 count, because they are that good. But it'd be something like this. We could add one more Touch of the Void in the sideboard. I think it's a little bit... I don't know what's better, Complete Disregard or Touch. But this gives us a lot of ways to ingest. And that would be my more Grixis non-budget version of the deck if you want to upgrade it. Well, I hope you enjoyed these matchups. I think that I would like to see like a red-green landfall, see how well we pair up against that, see how we pair up against maybe a more traditional Jeskai Black deck, and then see if they can beat both of those matchups. I think the deck is viable. If not, I think that too much in the metagame right now is Jeskai Black and red-green landfall. But the metagame is incredibly diverse. It's not showing that off of like Star City Open finishes. Or recent tournaments. We have a lot of people, like the Mox tournament on Magic Online recently was like 90% Abzan. It was just so much Abzan that ran wild. But I still think that this is an environment that it's bittersweet. Why I call it bittersweet is I like formats that are very diverse, where you can basically play any deck that you want and be successful at it. That is not an environment we saw during the Theros and Return to Ravnica era, or during the Scars of Mirrodin and Innistrad era. Those were eras that were dominated by 1 or 2 or 3 decks, and that was basically your only option. But the problem I have with this metagame or this format right now is just how greedy the mana base is, and it just turns into good stuff decks, rather than in more intuitive and synergistic decks, which is more of my cup of tea, to play those type of decks. So you can still brew, but it's gonna be very boring matchups going against people that go. I think my worst case scenario up to this point has been a turn 2 Jace into a turn 3 Crackling Doom into a turn 4 Siege Rhino into a turn 5 Sarkon, the Planeswalker. And I saw how ridiculous that was, to where they were able to first turn fetch up a blue source, second turn play basic land for Jace, a basic plains, I believe it was. Third turn get a Cinder Glade to be able to cast or the red black one to be able to cast the Crackling Doom, and fourth turn go into a green source to cast the Siege Rhino, and then fifth turn have all of your colors to cast a Surok. So it was just ridiculous. There's no rhyme or reason why those cards are in the deck, except that they just all are value-based cards. So I'm not a fan of value-based cards in general, card design in general, or like synergy-based card design. Cards like Siege Rhino are just can't wait for rotation to get rid of a bunch of the cons cards that I don't think that pair up very well with Zendikar. Zendikar is just too greedy of a mana base. The whole point to making the cards powerful in the cons block was to make sure you played the particular clans. And so back in cons block, it was very rare to see a Mantis Rider out on turn 3. A lot of the times it came out on turn 4 just because you had too many temples that came into play tapped, or the life gain lands that came into play tapped, or you just missed one of your colors. And with the Battle for Zendikar, you're not going to miss a turn 3 Mantis Rider or turn 4 Siege Rhino. It's very easy to fix exactly how you need to be, and you actually even be very greedy with the cards you choose to play beforehand, because that was the whole scenario with Mantis Rider. It was, well, do I want to go first turn Wild Slash, second turn Seeker of the Way, and then have to play a blue source that came into play tapped, or do I first turn put in the card that came into play tapped, not have access to that, and then usually you didn't have the perfect scenario. And that is something I learned the hard way at Pro Tour Gatecrash, as I ran a 3-color deck, and it was almost every game that I lost was due to the fact that I had to play a land into play tapped, or be faced with a scenario that set me back. So I'd rather have a format that punishes a 3-color deck, or at least doesn't optimize it so much like we do with the Constant Darkir Battle for Zendikar. So anywho, you can still brew is what I'm trying to say, and I think the decks like this can be successful at your local game store and even successful at a higher end tournament like a PPTQ. This has been Kevin with GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching.